Welcome to Document Formatting MLA Style. I am Beth Harker, and I will be your guide to MLA Style. If you haven't already, I strongly urge you to purchase a copy of the third edition of the official MLA Style Manual and Guide to Scholarly Publishing. This book contains a wealth of detailed manuscript publishing information from individual papers to book formats. This presentation covers just basic format typically required for academic papers. MLA Style covers basic formatting, which is required for document format and content format. Advanced features are only used if needed, and that includes tables and illustrations, footnotes, and endnotes. This standardized format appears throughout a paper. You use white paper, 8.5 by 11 inches, single side. Margins are 1 inch, top, bottom, left, and right. And the line spacing is double spaced with 0 points before and after paragraphs or any other line spacing. A lot of times the default setting adds some extra spacing in there, so be sure you go in and remove that and make sure it's 0 points. In the header area, you've got that 1 inch margin. At the half-inch about half-inch down, you will include your pagination. Every page has a page number on it. And just before that, the writer of the paper, the last name of that writer, goes in there. And that appears on every page. The cover page format, it can be a little bit different. Unless an advanced level cover page is required by your instructor, use MLA's basic format, which is a simple 4-line heading on the first page. This is how students put their names on their paper, for example. So on that first line, you have first name, last name, then the instructor's name, course name, and finally the date written in European or military style, which is day, month, year. Next is the title, and that title is centered on line 5 with a limit of 6 words or less preferred. That way you prevent having such a long title that it appears like a sentence that has been mistakenly centered. It must be plain, plain, plain. No italics, no underlining, not bold-faced, not in all capital letters, nor in quotation marks. Very plain. It is in headline style, with the major words capitalized. Typically, only 2 titles are used in a basic MLA format. The paper's unique title, like we have here, and that last section, which is Works Cited. Now let me briefly touch on section headings. This feature is used primarily when a student is reporting on original research projects. For most class papers, especially those under 10 pages, they are often more distracting than helpful. So my advice to students is that it must have a clear and unique organizational purpose, similar to what we have here, very unique titles. If students feel that they must provide a section heading to let me know that the first paragraph is the introduction or the last paragraph is the conclusion, then they probably need to rewrite a better one. Text-only or number-only section headings are centered. A combination number and text section heading resembles a formal outline style. It's flush left with indentations for subsections. In my class, most papers are not complex enough to require this, so I ask students not to use them. For the text format, that is left justified only. Double-spaced again, with no extra spacing between paragraphs. Now, MLA recommends 1 space after end of sentence punctuation, which is what Turabian requires, so that is the guideline I tell my students to use. 2 spaces is not an outright error, but it is not recommended. Font size must be 12 point in both the header area and content area. MLA recommends an easily readable typeface for which the regular type style contrasts clearly with the italic. Now, research indicates a serif style is easiest for most readers, which enhances readability and in turn comprehension. Times New Roman is a timeless choice and what I ask my students to use. Two alternative styles include traditional, not new, Courier or Helvetica. Academic papers are not the appropriate place for creative font choices. They tend to distract readers from the ideas being presented. Plus, in this scholarly college-level setting, it can be perceived as amateurish. Stick with a classic style, such as Times New Roman. Now, indentations, there's several different types. For paragraphs, always use a first line indent, which is a 1/2 inch. Do not use spaces. That worked with the old manual typewriters way back in ancient history. But for digital and Word documents now, you need to make sure it is 1/2 inch. Long quotes, which are 4+ lines, those are all indented 1/2 inch and in block format. Kind of what we have right here. No quotation marks are used with the long quotes like you do with the in-text quotes. On the Works Cited listing page, you will use a hanging indent of a 1/2 inch. And there again, make sure it is a 1/2 inch, not manual spaces. Now, advanced features include tables, illustrations, footnotes, and endnotes. And I advise students to be very cautious if and when inserting advanced content into their papers. MLA devotes a whole section to formatting tables and illustrations. So typically these advanced features are not required. They're used only if needed. Tables are generally created by the writer to present data from a source into an easy-to-read chart or graph. The title, Table, appears at the top, flush left, using headline-style capitalization, not all capital letters. A brief caption goes directly below the title, and source information is provided below the table itself. Now, for illustrations, that's visual materials that originated as a whole image from a source. It could be a chart, graph, map, or any other type of image. The primary difference is that the title, caption, and source, all of those appear below the image. MLA footnotes are not the same as, for example, Turabian footnotes, where they are primarily used to cite sources. In MLA, in-text citations exclusively do the work of crediting sources. So having said that, there are two types. There are content notes, which offer comment, explanation, or information that the text cannot accommodate, and there are bibliographic notes that contain either several sources or evaluative comments on the source. So that's not something in particular that is an in-text citation. It might be additional sources to consult. Then we get to the Works Cited page. That's at the end of the paper following all the content text. The Works Cited page starts at the top of a fresh page and follows basic document formatting rules. 1-inch margins, and again the title is plain, plain, plain. Listings are flush left with a hanging indent of 1/2 inch. That means that second line is indented, not the first line. Entries are in alphabetical order using the first piece of information, which is usually the author's last name, but may also be a source title if the author is not identified. Source documentation begins with bibliographic listing found in the Works Cited page. Only sources used in the content of the paper can be included on this list. In-text citations must correspond to the first piece of information found on the bibliographical listing. This in-text citation is key to helping prevent plagiarism issues. Details on formatting this listing will be the subject of a separate presentation. Source documentation formatting shown here comes from the new MLA Handbook 8th edition, which was released in April 2016. And of course, these are the recommended sources for MLA Style. You have the Manual and Guide to Scholarly Publishing. For source documentation, you have the new handbook published in 2016. And of course, there is the website that you can consult at www.mla.org. On that note, I'd like to thank you for your time and have a great day.